It's Sunday night, and that means it's time for our Paramotor Nation, bringing you some of the most influential people in the sport of paramotoring in America and around the world. Tonight's show is sponsored by Fly My PPG, offering a full-service paramotor training experience. Florida Flight Sports, year-round training. You can do this. PPG Lights, countless patterns and colors on your paramotor. Lone Star Paramotor, foot launching, trike training classes, and much more. PPG Zone, your go-to place for all paramotor information. Aviator Paramotor, a cornerstone for paramotor training and paramotor equipment. Fly PPG, discovered powered paragliding, paramotor training on a field of dreams. Wisconsin Flight Sports, making it affordable and accessible for you to get your paramotor training. Charlie Soap, supplying you with all natural laundry detergents and household cleaners. One-Up Adventures and ParamotorProps.com, providing all paramotor training and adventure trips. Skylab SIV, teaching pilots of all skill levels collapse recovery and advanced maneuvers. True North Paramotor, offering American-made, fully customizable frames as well as wings and accessories. Blackhawk Paramotor aims to provide the safest and most powerful paramotoring equipment. Paraswag USA, your complete powered paragliding gear source. iFly Indiana provides training on their equipment or yours for $2,500. Wicked Wings Logo provides customizable glider logos. Check out all of our sponsors with links to their websites along with past episodes and much more information at www.ourparamotornation.com. And now it's time for this week's episode of Our Paramotor Nation.
What is up, everybody? It's Sunday night. Welcome to Our Paramotor Nation. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to say welcome to two different audiences, and I've never done this, and shame on me. I'd like to do that right now. First of all, we have a live audience watching, and it's great when you can watch live because you're participating in the chat. You're asking questions of our guests. So, Jim CR120, Chief Mora, Bill H., Linda Anderson, Anthony Peregringo, Geriatric, PPG. I'm just trying to hit all the first couple people that were in the chat tonight. Yankee Paramotor, Will Fly, the list goes on. Thank you guys so much for joining us tonight. Also, I want to say welcome to the people that are not watching live, the people that are, maybe you're listening to the show while you're driving. Don't watch the show while you're driving, but thank you for listening to the show. Right now, this time of year, there's usually around 60 to 70 people that watch the show live, but then you see there's anywhere from 300 to 400 or more people watching these shows. And it's great to have you on. A lot of times in the chat, there's super donations, and you hear me make mention of that, and we really appreciate those donations to the show. If you're not watching live, but you'd still like to support the show, you can do that by becoming a Patreon. You can do that by going to www.ourparamotornation.com. And thank you all for all of your support. We love doing the show every week for you. You saw right there at the top as we opened up the show, our deepest condolences go out to the friends, the family of Michael Holliday, a friend of the show, a former guest of the show. He will truly be missed. Our heart's just broken for him. Michael obviously ran Endless Foot Drag. He planned it for the last couple years. He was planning it for this year, and I'm sure there's almost going to be as if there's a black cloud hanging over it, but I'm sure it's going to be a lot of fun still, and that's the way he would want it to be. One of the people who is going to be there is a man by the name of Johnny Gasparra Ripa. What's up, Johnny Ripa?
Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight?
Well,
yeah, David, that's a tough one. I was really looking forward to meeting Michael Holliday.
Yeah.
So, maybe we'll do a flying formation for him or something out there. I hope we have some, some time to dedicate to all he's done for the sport.
Yeah, absolutely, buddy. I think that's a great idea as well. I want to talk. We got a lot of shows coming up, and I'm going to go through.
Yes.
But first of all, John Heisley is going to be here. He's in the green room right now. And John, we've talked about this before, the crazy requests that we get from our guests about what they want in their green room. He actually had us paint a yellow stripe across the top because he's such a big Packers fan. Maybe not after today, but he is a Packers fan, hopefully still. He'll be coming here. I think he's still sobering up a little bit, so they're trying to get him down the hallway into his studio. But he'll be here shortly. We have a big show. I'm going to talk about the next 4 shows we have lined up, but there's a big show, John, that you and I know about that's coming up October 24th. A lot of people have been asking what's going to happen, who's going to be. What I'm talking about, John, as you know, is the Halloween Spooktacular.
Spectacular.
And, unfortunately, you and I weren't able to make the show last year. And unfortunately, again, I've got plans. You told me you're not going to be able to do it. We were going to do a show on October 31st, but we both agreed probably be better to let the families be with their kids. We're not going to do a show on October 31st. So we planned the Spooktacular on the 24th, but I'm busy. You're busy. We got things going on. Someone else will be hosting the show. But if you remember last year, Mark Amundsen, there he is. Mark Amundsen came on the show.
Oh, he was great. He did
great.
a wonderful job.
He hosted the show, and he had several different guests. You might remember El Capitan was on the show. And,
how about Fat Ucker?
Well, would you let me do this, please? Leah Catullo. I have an order, Johnny. Shush. Leah Catullo. There she is, the great Leah Catullo. Greg, Anthony, Michael, Philip. Greg, Anthony, Michael, Philip, I forget his last name now. Greg, Anthony, Michael, Philip Harris was on. There he is. He looks so wonderful. But that was a really good shot of him, too. A very good picture of him. Mel Fonzie. I think he changed his name for the show. But there's Mel Fonzie. He was on the show. Yankee Paramotor. Look at how handsome Yankee Paramotor is, John.
That's right.
And you mentioned him before. There he is. Fat Ucker. Fat Ucker was on the show. And showing up to Mark's studio, there's little Kyle Mooney. Kyle Mooney's adorable. There he is. Of course, our friend Todd Scandrette from Resurgence PPG. He was on the show. And last but not least, we had Trike Flyer. Trike Flyer was there. What a great show that was. And Johnny, we're looking forward to the next show. And
can't wait.
The good news is we've already had several influential people in our sport reach out to us.
Anybody you can tell us about?
Boy, you did that really good. Good lead.
Yeah, because if I say it another way, you're going to yell at me.
You're getting better at this, buddy. So we have a lot of people that are lined up. So here's what we thought.
Let's hear some names.
No, here's what we're going to do, John.
Okay.
Next week, every week for the next couple of weeks, we have 5 so far. We may bring in a couple more. Starting next week, we will announce the first influential person that will be joining us on the Halloween Spooktacular.
I love it.
Everybody is excited about that. It's going to be a lot of fun. The next couple shows. Let's get right to that. Next week, we just saw him, Greg Anthony Harris. He will be joining us. He just did, as I mentioned before, the amazing video. He was out in England for 2 months with Parajet. He flew some drones into a propeller. He flew it into a glider and into lines. He's going to talk about all the results. You're going to be able to ask, why did you do this? How did you do this? So he'll be on. Now, we haven't had a Resurgence PPG show in a long time. Obviously, Resurgence PPG is our one and only, main philanthropy on this show. We do a lot for Resurgence. We had a lot of donations last week. I just donated some more, another $100 to Resurgence PPG just this week. Supporting adaptive veterans, getting them up in the air, getting their training. So Todd's going to be coming on the show. I asked him to bring a couple other Resurgence candidates or new pilots that have just gone through the program so that they can talk about their story and we can give them the respect and love that they so rightfully deserve. Now, October 3rd. You ready for this, John? Well, you know because you booked her. Tell us who's going to be on October. Unless something comes up, she said she may have something else going on, in which case we'll switch it. But who's it going to be, Johnny?
We have the wonderful, the cute Maria Blandon.
And who is she?
Well, if you guys know Matt Minyard, you know who Maria Blandon is.
That's right. Matt's girlfriend. She's been flying for a couple years now, flying in, I think, Costa Rica. She's so fun, so wonderful. That's going to be a great show. Week after that, we have October 10th. I've booked Ryan Bond. Ryan Bond's a relatively new pilot in the last year. You may have seen his post that he just had this past week on the Facebook page for Paramotor. He unfortunately had an accident. He was ground starting, and he said, I will never do that again. So we're going to be talking about that, and we may have a couple other guests as well coming in. So there you go. Without further ado, Johnny, can we get to our guest? Is that okay?
Let's bring him in. I'm dying to talk to this guy.
There he is. John Eisele is here. John, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I'm doing great. Thank you for being here so very much. I do want to say one more thing before we get started. I'm gonna give, just in case you don't know, if you're not one of the couple hundred people that John has trained in paramotoring, or one of the future students possibly that John may train. I'm going to give you his background here in just a second. Two quick things before we do start, if that's okay. Geriatric PPG just made a $10 donation to the show. Thank you so much. He supported us last week too, I believe, John, didn't he? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that, buddy. I appreciate that. I hear Addison, my daughter Addison, is going to be, I think she's coming down the steps right now. And so she is going to be sitting next to me, putting names in the wheel. We got a couple prizes we're going to give out tonight. So please make sure you are active in the chat. She is going to be going ahead and putting names. I'm sorry. What are you doing here? Where's Addison? I'm sorry. Hold on one second.
What is he doing?
Are you doing the wheel? You're doing the wheel tonight. Oh, shit.
We have a big show here.
I'm sorry, guys.
Wow.
We have someone joining us tonight. He's going to slide in here next to me. Ladies and gentlemen, Dave Ruff is here. You may remember this guy from our Paramotor Nation. Hi, Dave.
What's up?
What's going on? John, you look surprised.
Wow.
Wow,
You got me.
Wow.
I got
Hello,
to listen to all you guys
Dave.
during the pre-show.
Come on over here. Yeah, so John, what are you doing here?
Well, you know, I was in the neighborhood,
Okay.
and I just hit him with a marshmallow.
Yes.
So I figured we'd give a couple of these away since I was here.
Nice.
Okay, those are marshmallow shooters. Kelby Cox, by the way, said to say hello to you. There he is. Tell him I said,
Sweet.
hey.
Hey.
There you go. Hot Butter Steve says no cussing. Sorry, buddy. So look at that. Slow days. Everybody saying rough man. Dave's here. Hey,
What's
so
up,
very
guys?
cool. Very exciting.
David, you really threw me off. I was like, what is he doing in the middle of the show here? And who is that? It's
police
got to
are
be his
here.
wife.
Well, let
I
me
said
t-
it has to be his wife.
I got to tell you, Johnny, and by the way, John Eisley was in on this too. He knew this was coming. You're the only one that was.
Hold it really well. You did a great job
Thank
with
you,
that.
buddy.
He really did. He got
So,
me.
I want to say, so Dave, as you know, is here with the Renaissance Festival in the Cincinnati greater area, and he is a stick bow. He's an amazing stick bow archer. He also builds the bows, and I have a bow that he gifted me, and we had a nice afternoon. He came over, watched me wallow, and well, I was celebrating half the Browns game, and but I'm going to show a video. I know the two of you are not going to be able to see this, but our audience will. It was really great to see Dave in a whole different light. Here he is. He's teaching my daughter Jillian how to properly shoot the bow, and she did great there. And now watch it. She does it on her own, and she hits the target of the bear's butt right in the middle. And look how excited she is. Huge confidence builder. It was just awesome to see Dave in his element. Here he is. He is teaching Addison, and Addison actually knocked the whole target over on that shot. And then you kind of missed it there, but Dave did this thing where he flipped his body around and shot it and hit it. And then Jillian had this amazing shot where she shot it right down the center, and she was so proud. And you did a great job, and it was so much fun having you here today.
Oh, man, it's my pleasure. I mean, you took me for a tour of the house and the property. It's amazing, man.
Yeah.
It is amazing.
And now we're sitting in John Ripa's designed basement, right?
Yeah.
This is great.
John, you did a good job down here, man.
Not bad for 12 days.
I can't believe it took you that long. Listen, so Dave's going to be working the wheel.
Yeah,
He
this
remembered
isn't
how to
about
do
me.
it.
Get to your guess.
So we're going to talk with John Eisley, though. So Dave's going to be sitting here. Thank you, guys. What weekend is he going to be at the Ren Fen? He's there at Mark H. He's at the Ren Fen every weekend. So, yeah, he's there. So if you want to come and see him, you can do that. All right. John Eisley's here. So let's get to John, and let's talk about John. So if you don't know John. So John is from before he was even born, right? Before he was even born. And I'm going to go through this, and then I'm going to let John kind of go back and explain a lot of this, okay? John had aviation introduced to him in the womb. That's right. He learned to fly before he learned how to drive an automobile. He graduated from Embry-Riddle. Okay, not a bad aviation school to go to. Thank you for your service. He is a veteran of the United States Marine Corps. He learned to fly PPG back in 2014 at Aviator PPG. He spent a year apprenticeshiping in 2017 for the great Godfather Eric DeFore, who I think Mr. Ripa spent time with this past week or the week before. In 2017, he also opened Paramerica And last I have on my list here, 2018, he did the Icarus X representing Resurgence PPG. John, welcome to the show. And as I said to you, this could be a 2-part episode. It really could.
Thanks so much for having me, and I appreciate the introduction. I think my parents are watching, so hi, Mom.
Hey, Mom.
Hi, Dad.
So why don't you take us back and start this whole story of In the Womb. Go ahead and start us back there. And if you have questions in the chat, feel free to answer them. This guy has so much information he can unload on you. Go ahead.
So I wasn't even planning this, I swear, but since you mentioned that.
Is that that can't be the flight log, is it?
I have my first logbook here.
Oh, how cool.
And when I was born, my dad took my logbook to the hospital, put my baby feet in ink, and put them on the front page of the logbook.
That's
so
cool.
I've always been infatuated with anything that flies. I love flying. I love aviation. I love being a part of it. And I don't just love the act of it, but I really love the culture of it and all the people that I've met and the way that it's changed my life.
Yeah.
So it's always been a part of my life. I don't know a life without aviation. I can't imagine one. So
can you remember the first time you actually went up in any aircraft at all?
I don't remember the first time because my first log flight was, I think, at like 3 months old, if I'm not mistaken. But I think the first memory that I do have of flying in an airplane was with my dad in a Cessna 172, and that flight was actually to Meigs Field in Chicago. Which, if anyone has flown the original Microsoft Flight Simulator, that was the default airport. And unfortunately, that airport was lost due to politics, which is a whole entirely different story. But I think that was really my first aviation memory, was flying into Meigs Field with my dad, which I'm really fortunate to have. So
that's awesome. Now, when, as I said earlier, you learned to fly before you learned to drive, when was actually your first flight? Or when did you start learning to fly an aircraft?
I started learning how to fly probably in my, I'd flown with my dad as a young boy, but I think I started doing flight lessons because he was a flight instructor. He was a high school teacher by trade, but he was a flight instructor as a hobby. So I think he really started training me, and we started taking training seriously probably around the time I was like 13 or 14 years old. We started training in a Cessna 172 and a Aranca Defender. And for those that are unfamiliar with the Aranca line of aircraft, it's very similar to a Piper Cub, tube and fabric fuselage with 65 horsepower, Continental engine in it, tandem seating. It's really just grassroots stick and rudder flying. So that's what I started off in, and I still like to consider myself a tailwheel pilot. So. Yeah.
I'm going to say a nice comment here that's on the screen right now. This is from Justin Fox. He says, John has been my biggest mentor in the sport. I love this guy. He's a wealth of knowledge and a wonderful asset to PPG. Thank you, Justin. That's a great comment there, too.
Justin Fox is my dude. I was just talking with Mr. Fox last night over a few glasses of whiskey, as a matter of fact.
Is my dude. He is my dude.
No, he's my dude.
All right. So this is a good education because there's people like my son who is going into aviation, and that's his plan. And he's in an aviation college right now. Embry-Riddle, holy cow, very difficult school to get into, a STEAM school. I guess what age? I mean, did you go right from high school? Well, obviously we went right from high school, but did you do any aviation programs in high school, or is it your regular high school and then getting into Embry-Riddle?
Mm-hmm. So I didn't do any, my high school didn't have any high school aged aviation programs or anything like that, but I have been very involved with the air show in Oshkosh, AirVenture, for every year of my life. And in fact, I've been attending the air show there since my mom carried me. She was pregnant with me at Oshkosh 87. So I've attended that every year of my life. And I think that was probably, aside from my dad, teaching me how to fly at a young age, I think that was probably the most influential thing in my life that really set me on a path for aviation. And that's also what inspired me to become a Marine. It's what inspired me to learn how to fly airplanes, and also what inspired me to learn how to fly paramotors too. So I think that's really where a lot of my, upbringing comes from, is just kind of hanging around the pilots and the airplanes there. And then as far as Embry-Riddle goes, I was interested in that school because my life goal was to become a Marine Corps aviator. So I was really fortunate to attend Embry-Riddle largely on an ROTC scholarship. So that was I don't know if I would have been able to afford that school otherwise, but I'm really thankful for the experience. And that's where I did my commercial multi-engine and instrument rating, got an aeronautical science degree, and also where I've made some of my best friends that I've ever met as well.
That is an expensive school. I know. I did look at that, but oh my gosh, what a program. So tell us about Afghanistan. And again, as I said earlier, thank you for your service. I know it's got to be tough seeing everything that's going on in the world right now for you. We don't have to go into all that politics stuff, but give us a little bit of background and on being in the Marines.
Yeah, so it's been an emotional month looking back at everything that's gone on with Afghanistan. A lot of feelings to kind of reconcile with. I know that there are probably a lot of other veterans, probably a lot of folks from Resurgence watching this that can probably relate with that. But at the end of the day, I'm proud of what I did over there. I'm proud of what our fellow Marines did over there. And I'm proud of what we did over there. I think it was the right thing to do ultimately. But I went to Afghanistan in 2013 as a part of a 19 Marine advisor team. I was there as a personnel advisor, and we advised a Afghan National Army infantry battalion in Sangin, which is central to the Helmand province in the southwest portion of the country. Interesting times there. It's kind of like the Wild West, but I think it equipped me with a lot of skills that I call on today as a paramotor instructor, and really just as a CFI, as a flight instructor. So
when did you get out of active duty?
2016.
Okay, I'm just trying to put in my timeline together here on you.
Yeah.
2016.
So I grew up, around Oshkosh, and I had always wanted to be a Marine Corps aviator since, as far back as I can remember. And that was really like my life's goal and my life's purpose. That's why I wanted to go to Embry-Riddle. That's, why I wanted to fly. And I pursued that goal to the best of my abilities. And, I think it was a combination of bad luck and worse timing with my eyesight and everything. And, I pursued that with everything that I could, and the most sense that I could make out of it, looking back in the rearview mirror, is that, God just didn't want me to be a Marine Corps aviator. He just wanted me doing something else. So I commissioned in 2010, and I became a logistician. And within that field, I did motor transportation. So I was active from 2010 to 2016, and I had applied to become a Marine Corps aviator for I think the 6th time. And at that point in my career, I was like, well, I'm 6 years into this. I can do another 3 years. I was looking at a new set of orders, and if I do another 3 years, I'll be 9 years into this. If I've done 9, I might as well do 10. If I've done 10, I might as well do 20. Or I'm at the point where I can just make a clean break right now and get back into my passion, which is aviation. And that's where my path went in a different direction, and made the decision to leave the Marine Corps to become a paramotor instructor, which I don't regret at all.
Awesome.
So,
again, thank you for your service on that. Lost my spot there. I know what it was. Dave Rainey. He made a $5 donation. You know Dave Rainey?
I do know David Rainey.
Well, he says, hey, John, Rocket City Paramotor is in the house John built.
Well, the Rocket City group is a really great group of pilots out there. I tried turning off my text messages on my screen, but I just saw a text from Kyle Mooney pop up also.
Kyle Mooney, stop texting him. It's making the bell ring and it's disturbing the show. Okay, Kyle Mooney. Stop.
Yeah, there's a really great paramotor hub in Rocket City. For those who don't know, Rocket City is Huntsville, Alabama. Justin and I trained a student and Kenneth Bethune in Michigan at Fly My PPG. And Kenneth said, hey, man, you guys really got to come out here to Rocket City, which is, for those who don't know, it's basically the defense industry capital of the U.S. So a lot of aerospace, cool stuff going on. That's where they built all the rockets and still do build rockets. So it's a very aerospace savvy area. And Justin and I taught, I think, 3 sessions down there in 2018, and just a really good group of pilots and aviators out there. So anyway, hi, David.
We also had a $5 donation from Will Fly. And speaking of Resurgence, he says Resurgence rocks. And if you haven't had a chance to check out Will Fly's videos, he's been doing an amazing job on his YouTube videos. Also, our friend Linda Anderson, she came in with a $5 donation as well. So thank you so much, Linda. And Linda, I said, Linda's going to be so happy to see Dave on the show because I know she was a big fan. What else? So, Resurgence. You did this. Should we get to the Icarus yet? Yeah, let's get to the Icarus, shall we? Oh, by the way, speaking of, I was talking about Will Fly and going to his YouTube channel. If you go into the description of this YouTube show, you're going to find 2 things of John. One, you're going to see a website for Paramerica. Paramerica, it kind of runs together. Paramerica. So you can see his website, and if you're interested in getting trained in Wisconsin, we'll be talking about that a little bit as well. And then also, there's an article that John put out. I think it was in 2019. It was originally, we're going to be talking about that here in just a few moments as well. Originally, it was in the EAA Sport Aviation magazine, correct?
Correct. Yep.
And you can click on both of those. I highly recommend that you read them very well, okay? But we're going to be going through some of that. Also, I love it. Gyro Jeffro says, $5 donation says, stop making the bell ring, Kyle. That's awesome.
Shut up, Kyle.
Shut up, Kyle. There you go. All right. And also, thank you, Ritva. Mike Thompson, Turtle, says hello from Rocket City Paramotors as well.
Hey, another Rocket City guy.
So everybody's saying hi to John. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. All right, let's get back to the interview, shall we? So let's see. So you said okay, Kyle Mooney. One more, real quick. Kyle Mooney says, John, this is non-negotiable. Do the truffle shuffle. I know you know what I speak of. $10 donation from Kyle Mooney. Can you please explain the truffle shuffle?
I don't know. I don't know what Kyle speaks of. I'm familiar with it, but I don't know the truffle shuffle. I might need to have Kyle demonstrate that for me sometime.
We'll save that for another episode, Kyle. Thank you. Thank you very much for the donation, though. I appreciate that, Mike. Okay. You said you left the Marines to become a paramotor instructor. That was in what year?
That was in 2016.
Okay. So in 2014, prior to 2014, how did you find out about the sport of paramotoring that we're all obsessed with?
Great question. So as I mentioned, I kind of grew up around AirVenture, and honestly, when I was a kid, I know you mentioned earlier that you haven't been to AirVenture before, but for those who have, there's an ultralight area up here, and it's on the southwest corner of the airfield, and they'll fly everything from weight shift trikes there to paramotors, powered parachutes, and they'll even fly some light sport aircraft from that field. But the ultralights really just have their own little area on the field, and honestly, I had grown up watching the paramotors fly. And, in the early to mid 90s, I looked at it and said, that looks boring. It looks unsafe. And the people that fly them are, kind of odd compared to the rest of, the normal GA pilots. And, not those assumptions weren't entirely they weren't entirely inaccurate at that point. But I never really had any interest in flying paramotors growing up. Until I was actually on my way back from Afghanistan. I picked up a flying magazine somewhere at a stop in Germany on our way home. And in this magazine, I picked up this article, and this prior GA pilot, like me, learned how to fly paramotors for himself. And in the process, he described this experience of running into the sky for the first time. And I thought, I've never looked at that sport in these terms before. And I'm going to be at Oshkosh in a few weeks. And from there, I'm going to look into this and do some digging. So I did the thing where I walked around all the exhibit spaces and talked to a bunch of folks. That's where I met Eric Farewell, who trained me in 2014. Then around that time, I think it was probably around 2015, 2016, I had gotten, turned down. My application to become a Marine Corps aviator got turned down for the final time, and I was kind of at a decision point in my life. Right. I went to Sun and Fun, where I met up with Eric and Travis Burns. And they both, convinced me to leave the Marine Corps behind to become a paramotor instructor. Okay. So in 2016, I left, moved down to Florida, and started instructing folks there. Okay. So,
yeah. Did you really like it? What was the big appeal about becoming a paramotor instructor for you?
I think that really the ability to not only change people's lives, but change the way that they see the world and see themselves. It's I think a lot of students come into the sport and they think that they're just going to learn this skill. They think they're going to learn how to fly something, and they just kind of leave it at that. But I don't think that they anticipate how much the sport is going to radically change their life and change their
health, everything.
Yep. And, I think that for some students that go through training, they get done with it and they're like, whoa, this is almost a little bit too much for me. I don't know if I have the bandwidth in my life for this. I think that's a small percentage of the former students that I've trained. But I think that's really what attracted me to it, was just the camaraderie and the challenge of being an instructor, and just the ability to change people's lives in a radical way. I think that was, and for me, it was just such an accessible way to get back into aviation, which I was missing so much at the time.
Awesome. If you're just tuning in, or you tuned in late, we're with John Eisele right now, and paramotor instructor, talking about his background. We're about to talk about this article. I'm joined, obviously, by John Ripa, and Dave Ruff is next to me, entering names in the wheels. Dave is donating 2 prizes to the show tonight, so if you are active in the chat, your name will be on the wheel. These crossbow marshmallow shooters are a lot of fun. Wish I had a marshmallow I could just...
Yeah, David just got beamed in the head by one.
They're a lot of fun. I actually have one. So please be active in the chat. Now, I just talked a few moments ago about this article that you wrote in EAA Sports Aviation Magazine. And the article was titled, Value of Good Training, Don't Be Too Proud to Seek Instruction. Ripa, I got to tell you, it's probably the next best thing to the PPG Bible. It should be, I think, just added on to the PPG Bible. It was really a great read. I highly encourage everybody to look in the description of this video and read it and check it out. Some of it may be controversial for some people out there, because it really talks about why John feels, and I'll support his opinions on this too, why you need to be trained and not just self-trained. So there's self-training versus professional training, and that's an interesting way that we put it, as professional training. So John, the first question in regards to this is, what is professional training?
Yeah, so I'm really glad you pointed out that distinction there, because I think a lot of people, and in fact, like a lot of well-meaning people say, okay, like you convinced me, I'm going to go get training, I'm going to pay for it, right? And I think that there's a difference between getting professional training that you pay for and training that actually prepares you for life as a paramotor pilot. That, any knucklehead can teach another knucklehead how to fly one of these damn things. Right. I think that there's a difference between training that teaches you how to fly and, also gives you the knowledge and the experience to start making safe decisions and representing the sport well. So I don't think it's enough to just say, go out and get training. I think we have to start having the conversation of, go out and seek good training.
How do I do that? I mean, I'm new to the sport. I'm in the paramotor chat. I keep asking the same questions that have been asked 100 times. Who do I go to for good training? How do I find out a good trainer?
I would start by looking into find out if there's any group of local pilots in your area. I'm sure, as you know, we're having this conversation through social media. Social media is a big driver of our sport. I think a lot of people can, get onto forums in their local area. I know for instance, the Rocket City Paramotor Group has their own forum. I know that there's a Paramotor Wisconsin Facebook group. And I think it starts first with finding the people that are in your local area and, showing up to the LZ and having conversations with them and, asking where they got training, what their experience was coming into the sport, what they've learned coming up into it, and like what they would do differently in hindsight. And I don't know if there's any binary answer, any black and white answer that I can give that say this is how you do it. I think it's really a combination of looking online and thinking for yourself and asking questions about the training program and asking other pilots what they think about those instructors and their training programs. And if it were me coming up into the sport, I would ask to see the instructor's syllabus and, make sure that they are not only teaching me how to fly, but also teaching me how to think. Because as you know, there are a lot of complex subjects within paramotor, and everything from airspace to weather to regulations to motor maintenance. I mean, there are a lot of topics that you're going to need to think about to become a safe and competent paramotor pilot. So
I try not to voice my own opinion on the show, but there's a lot of I've heard of a lot of people that are not far out of training, and then they become an instructor. And sometimes that worries me, sometimes it don't. I actually had a conversation. We had a former guest a couple weeks ago. Her name was Michelle Burns, life coach. I got to take her for a tandem ride 2 weekends ago at the Dave Purdon Fly-In. And a friend of mine came up to me and says, "She's so young. How could she be a life coach?" And I said, "That's a great question, and I can see how you would feel that way." I said, "But you see that guy over there, that 11-year-old kid named Flyett Wyatt?" I said, I would rather get a lesson from him than half the instructors in this country, because he knows what he's talking about, and I know who he trained with, being Matt Minyard, and he knows his stuff. So I don't think there's an age, and I'm wondering, is there a time that a person, you just said it's not black and white, and I don't think that it can be black and white in how long someone's been paramotoring, but there is also experience, and that's got to pay. How important is experience as far as an instructor's abilities?
So this is a really good question. Before I answer it, I want to just give you a few disclaimers.
Okay.
One, I don't think that there is a problem with inexperience. In fact, every instructor at some point in their flying career has been inexperienced. Two, I don't want to make this sound like I'm, attacking anyone or talking down to any instructors that are out there that are, new or inexperienced. And three, I don't want to talk anybody out of becoming an instructor, because obviously I'm very passionate about it and enjoy it, and I'm very thankful to call myself an instructor. So that said, I do think that a lot of people that are either becoming a paramotor instructor or thinking about it tend to underestimate it. And they really kind of view it as being like a social media influencer. They're just going to go and, make YouTube videos or make comments on Facebook or sell motors. And there's a lot more to it than that. And in fact, being a paramotor instructor is not only a huge responsibility, but it's also a lot of work. And I think one of the common mistakes that I see new instructors making is going into it alone without the help of other instructors looking over their shoulder or mentoring them. I think that this is what Justin Fox, who I know is watching, has done really well. He's always sought out mentorship and sought out coaching to make himself a better instructor. And once again, I'm not going to try and, say that I have all the answers here. I learn more about being an instructor every single time that I step in front of a student, and I learn from others that I instruct with too. In fact, I'm going to be going back to fly my PPG here in a few weeks to instruct with Justin, and I'm really looking forward to that because every time we're together, we're kind of playing off of each other like dueling banjos, and we're constantly learning from each other and learning new ways to do it. So I think that's a long way of trying to answer your question to say that it's becoming an instructor is a process. And I don't think that people should do it alone. So
I'm going to come back to there's a question in the chat. I'm going to come back to it in a few moments here because I want to kind of take us in a different direction too. There's kind of some loaded questions here. Who in all of aviation, who is certified? Who has to get certification? Or maybe the easier way to answer that is, who doesn't need to be certified?
You mean as far as pilots or instructors? I don't know if I understand.
Pilots. Anybody that flies an aircraft, any type of aircraft. Hot air balloons?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. So
fixed wing?
Hot air balloons, fixed wing aircraft, rotorcraft. Really, we, as you know, have a very special privilege within Part 103 that doesn't require us to have any certification. And in fact, the FAA and their preamble to Part 103 has, basically said, hey, here's the rope, don't hang yourself with it.
That leads me to my next loaded question to you. FAR 103, in your opinion, is it outdated?
I don't think it's outdated, but I think that it's something that we have a responsibility to protect because if we give the non-participating public enough reason to do so, it can and I believe will change over time. As you probably know, the regulations for Part 103 were written in 1986. And I have to confirm this, I'm not sure, but I believe that ironically, like my grandfather had a large part in writing those regulations. He was the deputy chief of the FAA.
Well, thank him.
Aviation. Yeah. So ironically, he came home one night and told my dad, son, there are these things coming out called ultralights, and I don't want you to ever think about flying. 40-something years later, teaching people how to fly them. So it's just kind of funny the way that things work out.
So you said a moment ago, I hate to interrupt you. You said because I don't want to forget what you just said. You said it's our responsibility, right?
Yep. So I'll get back to that, because one point I want to make is that when the regulations were written for Part 103, they were written largely to address the growing sport of hang gliding at that time, which I think that at that point in history, they were at a very similar point where we are within the community of paramotoring. People hadn't, it would be several years later when they, wrote the preamble to Part 103, it would be several years until someone either got brave enough or stupid enough to take a parachute and strap a fan to their ass and, go try and fly the damn thing. And paramotors are not the only part of 103 that is growing and innovating at this point. If there was anyone that was at Oshkosh this past year, there was what they called the Black Fly aircraft, which looks like a little fuselage, and it had canards on the front and rear part of it, and it looked almost like a drone, almost like a quadcopter. There are now jetpacks that are flying around that are Part 103 fit within that definition. So paramotors aren't the only part of Part 103 that's evolving, but I think it's something that we have to be aware of, that although we fit in the definition of Part 103, it can and will change over time if we give that non-participating public enough reason to. So,
John, the question from Jim CR 120, any thoughts on why?
Sorry.
Justin Fox, please stop calling. Or I'm sorry, Kyle Mooney.
I tried turning that off before I started this whole thing. Now I got to figure out how to get back to.
Everybody, leave him alone. All right. So Jim's question was:
please leave John Heisley alone.
Any thoughts on why the sport is continuing to have mistakes, and what might you suggest to improve the safety mindset? Okay, so That's the question. But where I'm going with this is, because you said it's our responsibility, are we, as a paramotoring community, really being responsible as a whole?
That's a big question.
I mean, that's an opinion, and maybe you don't want to give that opinion on this, and that's fine.
I think that ultimately, part of the beauty with Part 103 is that the FAA doesn't care if we hurt ourselves or endanger ourselves. Like, we have the freedom to do that. They're going to start caring about Part 103 when we start affecting the non-participating public, whether they're people on the ground, whether it's people's property on the ground, or whether, we're having issues in airspace where we are, now creating like collision hazards for aircraft. So I don't think the FAA, this is my opinion, I don't think the FAA cares about our personal safety or well-being as much as we do, but I don't think ultimately that's what's going to endanger Part 103 as we know it. It's that interaction with non-participating public.
So here's where I'll get myself in some hot water. I'll take the heat, okay? Because we love not being monitored and ruled by the FAA. I've now been 3 years into this sport, and I'm getting a little tired of seeing people get hurt and doing stupid things and scaring animals and closing down air sites. I'm getting freaking tired of it. Okay, so maybe, and here's the thing, and I'll ask you this question, and you don't have to answer this question. My answer is yes. My question that I wrote down was, is the FAA lazy? And here's why I asked that. Unfortunately for me, part of my story is being wrapped into a school that I don't support any longer. When I get people sending me messages and saying, did you see this video he put out? And seeing certain people flying tandems illegally. I am very proud that I got tandem exemption, and I trained with One Up Adventures. Very proud of that. Proud that I've got that exemption through Aerosports Connection. But then I see people who are instructors or so-called instructors hurting other people in the sport, people that should not be flying but think they're getting proper instructions, training them to fly tandem when they're not even tandem exempt through the FAA. Is the FAA looking too much the other way and not protecting us?
No, I don't believe so. I wouldn't put that on the FAA. I would, put that on the operators themselves. That's a big question.
Yeah. Sorry.
I actually have interjected.
I think what's important here is that this guy is texting me about the Packers game. He's a Bears fan. He won't leave me. Nothing even paramotor related. So the can you repeat that? I'm sorry. I was trying to shut that down. I totally lost my train.
Is FAA being too lazy and not protecting us?
No, I don't think it's the FAA's responsibility to protect us.
Okay. Dave, you had a comment on that?
I think it's our own responsibility to protect ourselves.
Okay.
So.
And I'm right there with you. I think that rather than the FAA stepping in and getting involved, unless it's something pretty serious, honestly, I think that we as a community really need to stop this type of stuff that leads to dangerous behavior, into unsafe flights, into accidents, things like that. We as a community need to step up and shut it down.
All right. I can already see, looking at the time, I can't believe we're at 9:50 right now. I have so many more questions
I apologize for getting all out of whack there.
That's okay. That's okay. No, this is awesome. And like I said, I told you I could easily see this going 2 shows. I mean, I still have another page of things to go through, and I want to try to hit some questions in the chat. Is that okay with you?
Yeah,
okay.
Absolutely.
So I don't know if you want this one. No, Kyle Mooney, legitimate question, he writes. He says, weekend instructor clinics, good or bad, or should this be taken to get a rating?
So I don't think that it's a reasonable expectation that at the end of a instructor clinic that you have everything that you need to know experience-wise, skill-wise, to go out and start instructing people full-time solo. In that article that you referenced, I quoted a flight instructor and aviation author, Robert Livingston, who said, "The instructor who teaches himself has a fool for a student." And I think that especially for those who have like a wet certificate, they just got their instructor certificate, that's only the beginning of learning. And I don't think it's a reasonable expectation to have gone through this clinic and now expect to be able to, take on students full time. I wish I could go back in time and go to myself in 2016 and say, here are all of the things that I have learned. Here are all the pitfalls and the traps that I've seen. Here are a lot of the tendencies that I see with students. Here are some of the mistakes that I've made. Here are the mistakes that students have made. And I look back at what I taught in 2016 and I'm like, I can't believe I told somebody that, or I can't believe I did that. I would never do it that way again. And that's why I just think that there's, it's incumbent upon new instructors to find mentorship and to find help, whether that means that they're interning at another school, or whether that means that they're using a local mentor, or they're hiring help, or they are, finding other instructors to help them on their journey. Getting that instructor certificate is just the start of learning how to become an instructor. And I would say the same thing as a fixed wing CFI also. When I got my CFI, my FAA CFI rating in 2018, I got done with the check ride with an FAA designated pilot examiner and thought, I can't believe I'm now qualified to go out and teach somebody how to fly an airplane and sign them off for their solo. Like, I need more help. I need to find an instructor that's more experienced than myself so I can draw upon their knowledge and experience so I can keep my students safe. Yeah. So I think that's a long way of answering Kyle's question to say that, the wet certificate is only the start of becoming an instructor.
You also, the way you answer that question, Mark H has a question here. And I think you could almost answer it exactly the same way as far as students. He says, how much responsibility should be placed on the student? They go to get good training, but if the student doesn't take it seriously, continue learning, or acts like a goober, is that the instructor's fault? And the answer is absolutely not. Just like you just said about getting another mentor, I think it's a great idea for people to go back to their hometowns, find other people that fly, and use those people as mentors as well. Any other thoughts on that? Or
my goal as an instructor is I know that I'm not always going to be able to be there for them. I'm not always going to be able to make decisions for them. I'm not always going to be able to look over their shoulder. And that's what I tell them on day one, is that all I can hope to do for that student is build them a solid foundation that they continue to build on top of. And I'm just going to use one complex topic as an example: weather. Like, I'm still learning about weather all the time. I'm reading it, I'm looking at forecasts, I'm making predictions, I'm making assumptions, and then I see that, like, I was totally wrong in my predictions and assumptions. That's a constant learning process, and I think that that's important for all students. Whether training does not guarantee future safety. Training should only be viewed as a foundation to continue that learning process after that training is complete. So
very good. Thank you. Gyro Jeffro says another donation for $5 says the FA does not teach people to fly. Your instructor does that. Very good. Thank you. Dave, did you had a thought about this too, right?
Yeah, just listening to this, and I just recently became an instructor where I've actually taught a few people how to fly. And as I listen to you talk, it's the same for me, where I look and go, I can't believe I may have said that, or teaching this way, and constantly evolving. And the thing that really comes to mind right now is when you see people coming out of training, a lot of times what I see them do is go from a training wing. Next thing they want to do is they want to fly the fastest C wing that they can find. They want to do wing overs. They want to do barrel rolls and stuff like that. And the best advice that I can give, in order to go fast, you got to go slow.
Exactly. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. Yeah.
Mr. Ripa.
Yes, sir.
You are the production manager of this show. Sort of.
Finally.
What? By the way, I heard PPG Gorilla's coming back next week.
Question for Dave: is PPG Gorilla ever coming back?
I think next week he might be back. That's what I heard. He might be back.
Oh, you didn't tell him that he's sitting
He's
upstairs
not coming
drinking
back.
beer?
He's not coming
Oh,
back.
okay.
It's just I keep leading him on. He thinks he's coming back, but he doesn't.
I'm surprised.
Okay.
that, he took a-
Here's where we're at. We're at 9:55. We got 2 prizes to give away, but I still have a full page of questions for Mr. Eisley. I really do. I mean, I'd like to hear from the chat. Do we want us to keep going for a little bit longer? We can, we do have an after show. John, I didn't tell you about that. We have an after show. People can jump in. But
I should probably go get a beer for that, huh?
yeah, you'll get a beer for that. We've got a couple extras here too if you need one. But what do you guys think? Do you want to keep? I mean, I've got some questions that really relate to this article too, and I really wanted to get John's thoughts on that because it's really good stuff. What do you think?
Why don't
Mr.
you do the raffle and then ask him some more questions? Get
All
rid
right.
of the raffle.
Can we do that? We'll do the wheel. Are we ready for that? And then okay. Aaron I says keep going. I'm good with that. Yeah. Why don't we give away? Why don't we do one now?
Yeah, we can do that.
And then we'll ask some more questions. And is that Mr. Eisley? Is that okay with you, sir?
Yeah, that's great.
All right.
That's
I
awesome.
want to say something real quick.
Oh, Dave wants to say something. Hold on.
Hey guys, I saw how you were saying hi. I am logged into Dave Wolf's account, so I can't really answer back because I'll say inappropriate things and get him in trouble.
Yeah, I can't
So
do that.
hi everybody.
Can I have this here? What are you doing? Oh, your headset's. Sorry, we're trying to work around the studio. All right, we'll just use my camera up here. We'll leave that one. All right, pull the cord. Sorry, technical difficulties here. All right, so I'm gonna bring this camera around. We're gonna be on the wheel here. All right. What's your buddy always say that you fly with? Is this what? Is this good?
Is this good content?
Yeah, right. All right. So we're gonna give away one of the. Go ahead, hit the button. Hit the middle. Is that it? Oh, that didn't work.
Oh, there it goes.
It's rolling. All right. So this. How am I mailing these two? Okay, we're not sending these out of the country. Sorry, Walter. All right, let's see who wins. It's hard to see the names here. Ding 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 ding. Whoa, we're getting dizzy. All right, let's see who wins. Who wins? You're breathing on my arm, Dave.
Congratulations,
Hot Buttered Steve.
Hot Buttered
Nice.
Steve.
I love him. Hot Buttered Steve. What did he win, Dave? Open up one.
He won one of
He's a
these.
new pilot.
There you
So-
go. New pilot.
If you've got Nerf darts, marshmallows, cat treats, dog treats, M&M's, Skittles, Smarties, those little things that come out of Halloween that they're little, yeah. Anyway, just put it into here, push the button, pull it, and it'll fly for
All right. There you go. Hot Buttered Steve won the first of the 2. I got to get this thing back set up here. All right. Hey, everybody. Welcome
You
back.
told me to hurry up.
I did. I gave you the move faster sign. We want to get back to the show. All right. Hey, Shondor in the chat. $10 donation. Thank you, Shondor. Appreciate that, buddy. Looking forward to seeing you next month, bud. All right. Hey, John Heisley. How you doing? John,
Hey,
you're pretending like your screen is frozen. That didn't work.
I was doing
That didn't work for Rip in the pre-show. It's not going to work for you either.
Psych out, yeah.
All right. Thank you, guys. And we're going to keep going, right? Everybody, Rippa, did you see the comments? Did people want us to keep going here?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Yeah, by the way, Hot Butter Steve, send me a Facebook Messenger, please, and just let me know your address so I can get that out to you. All right. A couple quotes from this article, John. Although strictly legal, self-training or inadequate training may carry significant unknown risks to life, limb, and equipment. Tell us about why you said that.
So I don't think it's a reasonable expectation that, for the scope of this show that I can go into every hazard or unknown that exists in paramotoring. And, but I think there, even for prior aviation pilots, there are a lot of unknown hazards, collapses, stalls, torque twists, riser twists, prop strikes. There are a lot of things that unless you were taught, there are a lot of unknown hazards that inexperienced pilots or self-taught pilots can put themselves in. Once again, I don't think that training is a guarantee of avoiding those things, but I think it's the only way to make decisions under the guidance of an instructor who is aware of these traps and hazards.
So there was one quote that you said in the article that I say quite a bit, which is, we don't know what we don't know. But this is another quote that I really like that you said. Feedback from the eye of an experienced instructor is one of the single most important ingredients missing in the process of self-training. So you said that, and then I think there was another thing too, where you put it in terms of time, 20 hours versus 6 hours. Can you go ahead and elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, so one of my former students is a professor of neuroscience at the Carver Medical Institute at the University of Iowa. Actually trained him down in Costa Rica, and he puts it in terms of a golf student mapping a golf swing under the guidance of a skilled instructor or a skilled golfer, rather than building bad habits that then have to be retrained out and remapped in the correct or more efficient or more safe way. In fact, I can tell when a student comes in for training sometimes, and they are, taught themselves how to kite or ground handle, or maybe they had faulty instruction to begin with, and they now have a lot of bad habits that need to be trained out of them so they can do it more safely or do it more efficiently. And I think that, under the guidance of a skilled and practiced instructor, a lot of these skills can be built a lot more efficiently when they're mapped correctly in the first place.
So you're saying you would rather someone not get a glider and start kiting and then come for training. Is that correct? Because I think in some people's minds, they think, oh, I'm going to be ahead of the curve and my instructor is going to love me because I can already kite the glider. You're saying you'd rather not have that.
With my personal experience, I would rather have a blank slate in an empty vessel that is ready to come to instruction, and I just want to take their brain and I just want to program into that brain what I know to be correct and safe and efficient. And in fact, I think this is where a lot of prior aviation pilots, I'm not going to say all prior aviation pilots, but I think this is where a lot of prior pilots struggle. Is that they have a way of thinking about controlling this aircraft that, as you know, is, different. We are suspended 12 to 16 feet beneath our glider, and we have a lot of pendular energy being built underneath it. And I think that for a lot of prior pilots, they struggle a little bit more than somebody without any prior aviation experience coming into the sport that is just ready to learn and ready to listen and do.
Here's another quote from the article. An experienced airline pilot would be no more qualified to fly a paramotor than would be to fly a hot air balloon or lunar lander without appropriate training. Now, with that being said, we've got a friend, John. We got a friend named Yankee Paramotor who is self-trained, an airline pilot, does a pretty darn good job, right?
Sure.
So is there transferable, tangible skills?
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm not going to say that that's not the case. But I think it's a different discipline of aviation. It's a completely different aircraft. I don't think, that I'm any more qualified than the next guy to go out and fly a hot air balloon or to go out and fly a helicopter. Would there be skills as a fixed wing pilot or a paramotor pilot that I can take and transfer over to learning how to fly, or, how to fly a sailplane or rotorcraft? Absolutely. But I'm also very aware of the fact that it's completely different discipline of aviation that requires a different set of skills, a different way of thinking. So I'm not saying that there aren't advantages to coming into the sport of paramotoring as a prior pilot, but I do think that those advantages are limited and need to be taken into perspective.
Okay. Let's see here. There is a question from our friend down under in Australia. Walter Perori says, coming from GA, do you think training in the U.S. falls short in training? Whether airspace, air radio, acro. In Australia, we don't have Part 103.
So do I think that training in the U.S. falls short of the standard that it should right now? Is that the question?
That's how I'm reading it, yes.
I think where, once again, this is just my personal experience, my personal opinion here. I think that if there's an ingredient that's missing from most training programs in the U.S., I think it's ground school on these complex subjects that we talked about, like weather, airspace, regulations, aerodynamics, motor maintenance, wing design, aeronautical decision making. When I teach ground school, it's about 30 to 40 hours of ground school that is not only equipping these pilots with skill, but also giving them knowledge so they can make safe and responsible decisions in the future. And I think that's probably where, if I were to, give you my personal opinion, I think that's where most training programs are falling short right now in the U.S.
John, I've got good news and bad news. The good news is I've only got 3 questions left.
Yep.
Bad news is there's so many more things I want to talk about. I want to hear about the Icarus X, and I thought of that because I just saw someone that showed up in the chat, Harley Milne, 50X Challenge. John and I were just talking about him just the other day. Harley, we were just talking about you, and what he did flying across the nation, sitting his rear end in that harness for so many hours is astounding. And anybody that does the Icarus, are you going to be doing this doesn't count as one of my questions, but are you going to be doing the Icarus when it comes here to the country this coming year?
Forward to it.
You are?
I can't.
You cannot.
What an awesome experience. When they the last time I remember them doing the Icarus, I think it was Africa, and I actually had I think it was Todd asked if he would sponsor me if I would do it, and I said yes, aside from the fact that it's during Oshkosh.
Yeah.
So I hope they don't schedule it during Oshkosh week, but otherwise I'm really looking forward to it.
Are you going to do it if it's not? And that was another question too. This is not a part of my 3 questions, Dave. What is the appeal of going back to Oshkosh every single year? Does it really sustain your interest every single year?
Absolutely. There's every single year there's something new, and it's not only the airplanes, it's the people, it's the experience. Just with the Airithmia team this past year.
That's another thing we didn't talk about, which we were going to talk about. We were going to talk about Airithmia.
There's always something new, but there are so many different flavors and disciplines of aviation here. There's so many things to see. You can't get it done every year. And I've even talked to some paramotor people before that, the only discipline of aviation that they know is paramotor, and they're like, well, paramotors is such a small part of what's going on at Oshkosh that I just don't know that I'd really appreciate it. And they go to the show, and a week later they're like, oh my God, this was amazing, I can't wait to come back next year. And once again, it's not just because of the flying, it's because of the people.
I dare say that if Oshkosh was exactly the same for 5 full years, 5 straight years, you still would not have time to see everything within that show.
Wow.
It's just, it'll blow your mind.
That's awesome.
It's just growing and getting better and more spectacular every year. So
I got to say thank you, a huge thank you to Hot Buttered Steve, who just won the Marshmallow Crossbow. He just made a $100 donation to the show. And he says, excited to see the folks at EFD and Nebraska Paramotor. Buckle up, Buttercups. Bring a bucket and a mop. Thank you, Steve. Really appreciate that donation to the show. You rock, brother. Thank you so much. All right. Yeah, I can't believe I didn't even have on my list to talk. We talked about talking about Airithmia. And
David,
now,
we're going to have him on again. That's
I'd love to be on.
Kyle Mooney's going, oh, I have a reason to come back on the show. You have to have me now.
You won't have to text me during the show next time.
All right, here we go. Yeah, we could have both you guys on. We could have Alexis and everybody else and Steve. And all right, let's get to these last 3 questions. What are blood rules?
Blood rules are rules that have been written, whether they are official or unofficial, that have been developed as a consequence of actions, whether it's a faulty pre-flight inspection or flying into bad weather. They're rules that are created as a consequence to prevent things from happening again. And I think that one of the common, lines of thinking for people getting into the sport that convince themselves that self-training is the way to go, it's like, well, every pilot was self-trained at some point. But my counter to that is that we've already learned a lot. We've learned better and more efficient ways of doing things. We've had paramotors now for 20 plus years, and we don't have to keep making the same mistakes when we already know the lessons. And I think that's really where the value of competent quality training comes into play, is that we don't have to keep making those same mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Very good. I think a lot of us, we've written our own blood rules and our own errors as well. What What is the biggest problem with self-assessment?
Are you familiar with the Dunning-Kruger effect?
Yes. Why don't you explain it to those who don't know, though?
So the Dunning-Kruger effect is a phenomenon that occurs when we have very little knowledge. We have an inflated self-assessment. You mentioned before you don't know what you don't know, and I think that's only the start of it. The Dunning-Kruger effect explains that the less we know, we have a completely opposite inflated opinion of our own ability and experience. It's not just you don't know what you don't know, it's that you are tricked into thinking that you know more than you really do. And you know, if I were to pull this up on the screen, it would look like a I can probably in fact do this on my whiteboard right here.
We have a whiteboard, John Ripa.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was a refrigerator.
So for here on the Dunning-Kruger curve, we have confidence right here, and we have knowledge right here. And when we have very little knowledge or experience, we have an inflated self-assessment of our confidence. And then at some point, we become aware of the things that we weren't aware of before. And as a result, we lose confidence until we start to gain that confidence back. I have a lot of students ask me, John, okay, you've explained the Dunning-Kruger effect to me. I understand that at some point I'm going to make a mistake and I'm going to gain confidence. I'm going to gain experience and knowledge. How do I avoid the pitfall of losing confidence? How do I avoid the pitfall of falling into a mistake that's dangerous or unsafe to me? My point to them is that as long as you keep gaining knowledge, as long as you keep gaining experience, you're going to lose confidence at some point. You're going to become aware of the things that you weren't aware of before. It doesn't necessarily have to be a mistake or an unsafe act that causes you to lose that confidence. In fact, I think that here in the pit of misery right there, where you lose that confidence, this is where you gain experience. This is where you gain skill and knowledge. And I don't think that this plane right here, I don't think that that's just knowledge. I don't think it's just skill or experience. It's a combination of all of those things, which ultimately is wisdom. And that's all of our journeys look different, but I think that this is just a basic human condition that we all share.
Is this a part? So John and I speak of the term intermediate syndrome. Would you say this is a part of any?
I was just thinking that.
Were you thinking that too? Intermediate syndrome there too? Yeah. So we all go through it.
And you see that in all forms of aviation. You see that in fixed wing aviation too.
Wow.
My dad would tell me when I was growing up, he's like, son, there's no more dangerous of a pilot than a pilot with a new pilot certificate and 100 to 200 hours under their belt. Once they start putting their confidence in front of their abilities.
That's great. My last question, I've actually already asked, so I'm not going to ask that question again. I'm going to reserve it for a different question. You were part of Paradigm and now Airithmia, correct?
Correct.
Yes. So what's your favorite part about doing these air shows in a paramotor?
I think that, being a part of Airithmia this past year, it was such a special experience for me to share something that I love so much with people that were in the exact same spot that I was, 10 to 15 years ago, where I saw these paramotors and to me, they looked boring. They looked unsafe. The people that flew them looked weird. But I have an opportunity on these teams to take the sport that I love and show somebody like, look, I fly airplanes too, but this is just a different type of aviation. And to be able to get done with the performance at the Twilight Flight Fest this past year and, land relatively close to the crowds and throw my glider over my shoulder and then go start like high-fiving kids and everything and then walking back to the Midwest Parajet booth, like letting kids put on the motor. Like that's a very powerful powerful memory for all of them. And we get the opportunity to be those positive ambassadors to our sport, because you talked earlier about losing access to LZs, or regulations or law potentially changing, and I'm sure you've been in a situation where you've maybe gone to a public airport and the airport manager has been difficult because someone 10 years ago did a dumb thing and either hurt themselves or endangered somebody else, and we are judged as skate punks when we go to that airport, whether or not it's fair. So here we have an opportunity to be a positive example, and to show people that there is a lot to love about this sport, and it can be safe as long as we have those decisions, or we have the ability to make those safe decisions.
I just want to know where the application needs to go. Become a water boy for this team.
I think,
wing fluffer, maybe.
There you go. Hey, I gotta say thank you to Parker Smith. $10 donation to the show he made. He says, another shout out from Rocket City. Rainey encouraged me to sign up for John's first Huntsville class in December of 2018, and it was the best decision I ever made. It covered so much, including responsibility. Thank you, Parker, for that. Those kind words for John, and for making a donation to the show. I'm trying to see here.
Speaking of Oshkosh, I saw Parker up here a few weeks ago, as a matter of fact. Well, it was probably more than a few weeks ago. It was about a month ago during AirVenture. So
I don't know if we have time for this, but Fly Swamper asked me to ask you to draw and explain the hot, crazy matrix.
The Barney Stinson hot, crazy matrix. Yes.
That would be a funny way to end the show. Gyro Jeffro.
There's a scale.
Oh, here we go. Hold on a second.
Hot. And then there's the scale of crazy. It's been a while since I've seen this, but there's the hot, crazy, and you can't be. So the hotter you are, the crazier you are. And I think I'd have to look this up, but there's there are different zones within this thing, and it's like, oh, you got the crazy hot. Yeah. Anyway, I did a terrible job explaining that, but yeah.
Well, and then Gyro Jeffro also asked, have you ever eaten a frog? I'm not sure. Is that something?
Not eating a frog.
Okay, I don't know if that was like an insult. I don't know.
He made a donation. He could ask the question.
He can make if you make a donation, you can ask anything.
That's right.
And anything at all.
All right,
Wow.
Dave, what do you think? 10-17.
Oh my gosh, what a show. We still have one more thing to give away. Let's do that real quick. Is okay?
And then we'll say goodbye.
We will say goodbye. What a great show. What great information, John. I knew it was going to be. John, Dave's still typing in a name? Whose name are you typing in? Oh,
Mark Rogers.
He forgot some names.
I'm also making sure that Parker Smith is in here.
Parker Smith. We got to make sure Parker Smith's in here. All right. Dave, you ready? We're on the big camera. We're zooming in. Whoa. Okay. Go ahead and hit the button. Let's get the show over with already.
Ready? Here we go.
We've got things to do tonight. All right. So we're spinning it. So this is for the other crossbow marshmallow thing, right?
Rifle.
Okay, we'll go with that. I wish we could see.
$10 to show up.
Don't tell. I only pay Addison $5. Don't tell her that. Hope she's not watching. Oh, Paramotor Brandon. Congratulations. He's been watching for. I don't think he's won anything. So what did he win, Dave? There it is. Don't give it the long description. Just show him. There you go.
Just pull this back, put it into here, push this button, load something, and it shoots it.
There you go. Just like that. It's easy as hot buttered meat. Oh, I can't say that. All right. Wait a minute.
I wanted Walter to win one.
No. Yes. I wish Walter. I would have loved to send that for $50 to Australia. That'd have been awesome. John, there you are. Thank you so much for being here tonight. Oh, I do want to give you one more chance. One other opportunity just to talk about Paramerica, and then we'll end the show. Where it's going, classes, all that good stuff. Give yourself a plug on that, please.
I appreciate the opportunity to do that. So I started Paramerica in 2017 in an effort to not only train students, but also, consult instructors and, provide that mentorship that I talked about earlier, and also just, be an ambassador of paramotoring. I don't view it just as a way for me to train people, but also to educate people about paramotoring. So I through Paramerica, I instructed at Aviator for I think it was about 1 to 2 years. And I also helped start some schools in Costa Rica with Gigi, who you and I were talking about here at Paracosta.
Yep.
Worked with Andrew Solano over at Skyfield Flight Works in South Carolina. Helped Justin Fox and Mike Cotter set up Fly My in Michigan. And then in 2018, 19, I went on a short detour and got a job with EAA as the flight programs manager. And within the past few months, I'm getting back into paramotor instruction. So there's a lot of news that I'm looking forward to sharing as it continues to kind of manifest over the next few months. But I plan to offer training in the near future in Wisconsin, also throughout the United States as, other locations start popping up. And I plan to go back into consulting for paramotor schools again as well. So really it's not only, a job for me. I don't want to call it a job, but it's really like a passion project as well, where I get to share what I love, which is not only flying paramotors, but, also instructing people, because I think I enjoy being a paramotor instructor just as much, if not more, than I enjoy being a paramotor pilot. That's my way to do it. So
awesome. I just saw a comment here too. I missed Shane's comment from above. I'm sorry about that, Shane. If I don't see it highlighted with my name on it, I usually miss it. Hey, awesome show. Thank you so much for all the information. If there's anything we can do to help Paramerica grow, please don't hesitate to ask. I certainly hope this isn't going to be the last time you're going to be on our show.
It was an honor to be on here, and I'm looking forward to the next one.
There you go. So what I'm going to do now is we're going to end the show. We're going to go ahead and put the code for Zoom. Are you able to stay on for a couple more minutes? I mean, there's no Packers game anymore. So
yeah.
All right. So we'll stay on for a little bit longer. In the after show, we'll put the code up. John Ripa, thanks for joining me. Dave Ruff, thanks for joining as well.
It's interesting seeing it from this side.
Yeah, whole different side.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, guys, thank you all.
Thanks,
John.
John.
Next week we got Greg Anthony Harris. We'll see you there. Thanks, John. Appreciate it.